Yes, what's happening, everybody? This is Stephen Howson. This is Full-Time Devils. This is the huge Anthony Martial debate. Now, it's been an absolutely belting week for Manchester United fans. We've all united in our hatred of everything else that's in the blue eighth of the city. And we're all enjoying what's occurring and what's involving. And the football that we've seen this week, there's some absolutely belting stuff in the Champions League this week, unfortunately. Not United. So let's turn the mood a little bit sour and let's get back to the infighting that we like. It's Anthony Martial. Do you love him? Do you hate him? He is the most Marmite player at the club at the moment. There is vastly debate, crazy opinions on him on both sides of the fence. We've got Anthony Martial FC over here and we've got Adam McKola, who's probably going to cry during the course of this, remembering some of the recent heartbreaks that he's had at Manchester United with strikers, with Danny Welbeck, with Falcao. Is Anthony Martial about to join that list and be another striker that's absolutely had Adam's pants down? We're going to get into it. So I am joined by Joshi, I am joined by Paul, and I'm joined by Adam, who's trying to start crying already. Save it to the end, lad. Right, we're going to talk about... Listen, we're going to come to these guys and we're going to say to him, talk to me about Anthony Martial. Is he the next player to win a Ballon d'Or and get a statue at United? Or does he need shipping off to the French League back where he belongs? That's what we're going to find out right now. Paul, I'm going to come to you first. Let's talk about his performance. Do you think he's justified his place? Do you think he should be starting for United week in, week out? Where do you stand?
This is one of those things that I don't understand. You mentioned Welbeck and Falcao. I don't understand how Anthony Martial is considered in any comparable category to either of those players. Both of whom I have to say I had very similar feelings towards. Me and Adam have got the same taste in wanting strikers to do well. But exactly. But Anthony Martial is a completely different category of player. He's very evidently a potential world beater who not only has huge potential, but has also demonstrated an abundant talent, influence and impact already during his young tenure at Manchester United. And the idea that there is a group of fans who don't rate Anthony Martial is one of the most truly bizarre outcomes of the Jose Mourinho era. And I think it has a lot to do with Mourinho's divide and rule management style. Later on in this debate, I'm going to blind people with science. I'm going to take Statman Dave's place and read out a whole load of numbers, which I won't do right now. But for now, I'll just say, of course, Anthony Martial is a wonderful player. And Steve can't hear me, clearly, but that doesn't make it's not Anthony Martial's fault.
I lost your audio there at the very end of that, Paul. But Adam, I'm going to come to you next. Let's talk about the performances. Just let's go not on the wider stuff. Paul touched a little bit on the wider stuff there. Let's just talk pure performance. Anthony Martial, is it good enough at the moment?
Before Alexis Sanchez arrived at Manchester United, Anthony Martial was arguably our best player after Romelu Lukaku, who I thought, Romelu Lukaku has always been there or thereabouts as one of our leading performers this season. Anthony Martial's form, he had goals, he had assists, he was killing defenders all over the place. And to say that, I've seen some people describe Anthony Martial as Marmite, and some people describe him as similar to Nani, and I can't help but laugh at all these kind of comparisons because Anthony Martial, look, I love Nani. I wouldn't mind a Nani at the club right now, to be totally honest with you, because we need a proper winger. But the comparisons to Nani are in terms of the fact that he's hit and miss. But for me, that's a joke. If you play to his strengths, if you play him consistently, you get performances from him. Of course, you're going to get dips in his play. He's a young player. We've seen that with Marcus Rashford. We've seen that with Romelu Lukaku. And we'll see it with other players. Paul Pogba, he's older than him. He's had dips in his play. He's suffered. So you can't say that he's comparing to Nani and all the... I know you guys mentioned Falcao and Welbeck because I used to love Falcao and Welbeck. But like Anthony Martial, I would be more... Of course, personally, I love the guy as my favourite player at the club. But not only that, his absolute ability means if he left, I'd be gutted because it doesn't make sense. Now, me personally, I kind of feel like all of these stories are part of the contract negotiations and all that kind of thing. But Jose Mourinho needs to show Anthony Martial he is wanted. It's that simple. Because what has happened with Alexis Sanchez coming in. Now, look, I would have made that signing. I think everybody would have made that signing. It was a very good signing. But what has happened is he's come in and he's all of a sudden all up in Anthony Martial's place. For me, if that was going to happen, I wouldn't have brought him here. Like, there's a way to fit both of them into the team. And I find it silly that Anthony Martial, one of our most talented players, is the one that's the fall guy for that. And especially, I love Alexis Sanchez as a fantastic player, but his performances were awful up until a point. And if Anthony Martial had performed like that, he'd be playing for our 23s. Let's be real.
Right. Third time of asking. Joshi, can we just talk purely about the performances of Anthony Martial, please? Just performances.
I spoke about performances.
No, you weren't off-road. You was talking about all sorts of stuff.
No, I didn't.
I think the performances are... we talk about hit and miss or dips in form. I think there is a level of inconsistency there. But in terms of the context of the squad, of course, he's produced great moments, and he did have a good run early on in the season when he was interchanging with Rashford on that left-hand side. And then towards the end of last year, so the calendar year, he was probably one of our best performers. The problem is he does have that in him to sort of fall away, and he will have an anonymous game, and he does look he looks frustrated at times on the pitch, and sometimes you just want him want him to just put that extra shift in, that bit of extra effort when it isn't going well for him, and that's where his head can drop, and that's what I think where these comparisons to are definitely not Welbeck and Falcao. He's a level above in terms of performance, but when we talk about Nani, this is where I think Rio Ferdinand made an excellent point last night about Mo Salah, where where the penny drops all of a sudden, where he wants to affect games. It's not about the entertainment, the skill and whatever. And it's similar with Ronaldo when he was at the club. There came a point where the penny dropped, and every single match, every single time he played, he did something to affect the game. And this is where he's currently lacking. And yes, he's young, and hopefully that penny will drop. But this is where he's currently lacking. The decision making at times is poor. And we've seen that in games prior to Sanchez arriving, and I think that's why Alexis Sanchez came in. His decision making again.
More goals and assists than Alexis Sanchez when.
Sure. Look, I think Sanchez this season is a difficult one to judge on because of the whole situation around him. But focusing back on Martial, I'm not saying he's not a supremely talented player. He is, and I'm not saying he's not young. So you do give him that concession. But at times, the decision making, not just from him, from the team, has been poor. And in this situation, he's turned out to be the fall guy. My main issue, though, then from there is how does he allow that to affect him? And I guess we're going to talk about that later. But in terms of performances, I wouldn't say he's been 100% consistent, but at the same time, he's not been at that Falcao level where he's down at the bottom. I think that's where this divide comes from. So I'm not Martial out, but I'm not straight in Martial FC either, because there is this sort of grey area or this sort of mist that does form at times when he's not quite on it.
But the numbers do not back up that opinion. You see, you're absolutely right. There are moments when Anthony Martial's had bad games this season. He's had bad spells this season. But first of all, this is the kind of problem with the post-Messi and Ronaldo world, where the way we're measuring footballers, we're not allowing footballers to have poor performances, poor games without somehow writing them off. The amount of United fans that wrote Lukaku off as a dud during his little bad spell in the middle of the season, and yet Lukaku over the course of the season has kind of had a consistently positive impact on United. And Martial's numbers this season are absolutely ridiculous. In the league this season, he's averaging 0.6 goals per 90 minutes of football, in addition to 0.3 assists. So that means over the course of this season, for every 90 minutes of football Anthony Martial's played, he's contributed just under a goal in goals and assists. That means you're into the zone of starting 1-0 up when Martial plays. Now, that isn't, and those aren't freak numbers either. The underlying data, so there's a lot of debate about XG, which is a formula designed to analyze the quality of chances, and the people who kind of devised XG and are at the cutting edge of that have developed a formula called XG Chain, which is about the amount of contributions towards goals individual players have by being part of the build-up for goals. Martial's is absolutely excellent. It's at 0.78 this season per 90 minutes, which is like a very big number. Lukaku's is slightly higher. Rashford's is much lower, for example, in terms of Rashford's per 90 minutes contribution. And no one's saying we should get rid of Marcus Rashford, and nor should they be. Anthony Martial came to... I'm just going to finish this and then totally let you jump in. Anthony Martial came to this country as a very young man, coming to a brand new culture to be managed by Louis van Gaal, given the number 9 shirt, played up front, really made to feel like almost the main man in the team from a very young age. Then Mourinho came, gave his number to someone else, gave his position to someone else, and had played him on the left, did the Mourinho thing of breaking a man down to build him back up again, which is, I think, archaic with this current generation of footballers. And yet Martial has still thrived in terms of, as Stephen would say, in terms of the pure performances of it all. He's not flawless, he's not the finished article, he's not perfect, but expecting more than we've got under the circumstances seems absolutely mind-blowing to me.
So I'm not saying that...
Sorry, Joshi, I just want to clarify a couple of things that Paul's been saying here. I don't think anyone's issue with Martial, purely playing devil's advocate, because I'm totally down the middle on this one. Don't think people have the issue with his goal output. I think it's more his work rate and what he contributes defensively. Would you agree?
But this is what...
So,
wait. I don't think that is the issue. The issue
is in Berbatov, and people used to get on Berbatov's case because he never used to run around 100
I'm playing
miles
devil's
per hour.
advocate here. Like, I know exactly what you're saying.
No.
Like,
It's not...
passion merchants, man.
I'm not saying it's anything to do with this idea of passion, desire, work rate, okay? And I think sometimes that card is played all too often to sort of mask tactical deficiencies and technical deficiencies in teams and players, certainly at United. But what I'm saying is not that I'm not at the extreme where it's like, oh, he's overrated, he's crap, he's rubbish, get rid of him. What I'm saying is I can see where this divide has come from, because yes, I'm not expecting goals every game, but sometimes when he plays and he has that dip in form, you may as well not have him on the pitch. And the main reason why people get on his back, and certainly from my perspective in this debate, is that he lets it get to him, and that's the issue, right? This is the difference between being like a Romelu Lukaku, where he'll still have that work rate, he'll still get into that position, he'll still do his work, he'll still get in there, and then he's played through that blip in form that he had. Whilst Anthony Martial, I don't think he does that. He lets it get to him, and then he sort of comes off, and if he doesn't have an impact on the game, and that's what happens. So I can see where there's a bit of a divide.
Respectfully, that specific point is totally inaccurate. If you look at like Lukaku's form went like this. It fell off a cliff. Then he really struggled and laboured and looked annoyed, not really into the game. His touch started to desert him. Then his overall performance level improved. Then the goals came back. That was the dip of Lukaku. But in that real dip, and I love Romelu Lukaku, by the way, but in that real dip, he disappeared in the way that Martial does, because these are all humans. They're all, and mostly young men, trying to do something at a really elite level in incredibly unhelpful circumstances for large parts, because the performance is not devoid of the manager's influence, the tactical setup of our attack, which the idea that Anthony Martial's defensive work rate should be more it's like you're buying a Ferrari and going, you know what, there's not a lot of room in the boot. Like, it's not great when I go to the supermarket and I do my weekly shopping and I can't get the kitchen towel in the boot and close the boot.
Paul, there is some aspects of that the team that you want a team to press from the front. Sometimes he doesn't do that. That's a fact. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that as well as some other players.
He
doesn't.
If you coached Martial, if you had a coached, coherent pressing unit, you would you could talk till for the rest of time. You'll never convince me that Martial is somehow kind of psychologically averse to working hard. Like, look at his work rate on the ball.
Do you need to coach Jesse Lingard
not...
and Marcus Rashford in pressing from the front because it's inherent in the characteristics of their players? Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
If you take Anthony Martial's style away from him and the way he is, he's a different player. Why do people just want teams having 11 donkeys on the pitch, running around, doing like, what the hell?
I don't think they do, and I think that's why we're having a debate. Anyway, we need to move on to the next one. We're going to talk about.
That's exactly what it is.
You need a blend. Ultimately, you do need a blend.
I think the argument.
I'm not. I'm playing devil's advocate, mate. That's all I'm doing. I'm throwing up the questions that the comments are throwing up, and we're going to come to your comments in a bit. So get your comments in. Right, we're going to talk about potential in a second. Before we go to that, I'm going to talk about some of the comments that we've got. Black Echo says Martial is so overrated. Nadeem says #FreeDocJoshi. Josh is banned on Twitter as well. Yes. I'm not even getting involved in case I get banned. Andres says all the fans in Manchester need to start to support Martial. G West says keep him. There's a him on the end of that. Should have been coming. John McDonald says it's fake news. Mata will go before Martial. We're not here sitting saying that he's gonna go. We're asking where everybody stands on the current situation. So the next thing we're going to talk about then is potential. 22 years of age. It's still very young. But is he at the stage now where he needs to be starting week in, week out? And why do you think he's not in the United starting 11? Adam, let's go to you first. What do you think?
Why he's not in the starting 11? Because Jose, genuinely, because of Jose Mourinho's inconsistencies in selection, and for the fact that Alexis Sanchez seems to have come and taken his place when it's rather odd to me. Alexis Sanchez can play on the right. We've seen him do it for Arsenal. He got a lot of goals, a lot of assists from that position. Why are you going to come in and force one of your most players that was getting goals, getting assists out of position and risk unsettling him? It doesn't make sense to me. And before Jose Mourinho arrived, I used to have this fear. Like, I used to say to people, Jose, like, the way he treated Robin, the way he was with Eden Hazard, the way he's been with some of these talents, I just don't feel he knows how to manage them, to be totally honest with you. And I feel like this is coming to the forefront now with Anthony Martial. Now, deep down inside of me, I'm praying to God that, like, I feel like he does want him. I feel like he sees there's a talent there. But I don't feel he appreciates him as much as he should. And I have no doubts he'll want to offer him a contract. I have no doubts he'll want to keep him. But will he go that extra mile that you need to with these kind of guys? Cristiano Ronaldo wouldn't have become Cristiano Ronaldo under Jose Mourinho's management because they need something different. They need sometimes an arm around them, sometimes a word in the ear, sometimes a little bit of communication. And I just don't feel like there is that there between the two. And you're going to get, look, with Marcus Rashford, he's a Manchester boy. He come through our academy. Like, he's always going to be, Jose's hands are kind of tied with him. But it kind of feels with Anthony Martial, he's trying to prove a point that maybe this guy isn't doing what I want or isn't good enough, when it's complete opposite to that. He's kind of fooled everyone into thinking Luke Shaw isn't a decent left back anymore. And I kind of get the feeling he's trying to do the same with Martial. But maybe that's just me being cynical. And I'm hoping he does end up signing this contract. But he needs to be starting games. I'm not saying every game either. Because up until January, I think it was kind of fair. Like, some games he wasn't starting. Rashford was. He was in, he was out. And that's fair, like 90 minutes here, 90 minutes there. But ever since that, it's just not been the same. I think his last game was Swansea at home. It might have been, and I know he didn't play against Man City. You can see him not playing in that game. But yeah, he needs to play more, man. I can't understand why we've got this talent at the club, and there's some fans that seem happy to just toss it away, and possibly a manager that seems happy to do it as well. It's bizarre to me, and it'd be like letting Pogba go now as well. It'd just be ridiculous.
Well, the Pogba thing came up a couple of weeks ago, and there was talk that Pogba could be going, and they might bring somebody else in. And And I'm really on the fence with that because I'm also a big Paul Pogba fan. I clearly prefer Luke Shaw over Ashley Young at left back. But sometimes, as everyone says, if the manager's got plans and players can't or don't fit in those plans, you kind of have to back the manager on this, don't you? Joshi, talk to me about potential. Hang on. Not going to you. I'm going to Joshi. So zip it.
People like to
come
say,
in a second.
It's not Marshall FC, it's Man United FC, it's not this, it's not that. It's not Mourinho FC either.
Exactly.
It is while he's in the chair, though. That's the problem.
For three seasons. So you ship out all your best talent to appease a manager who's going to be...
Hang on.
Who's going to
we're going to you in a second. I'm going to Joshi. Joshi, talk to me about the potential of Anthony Martial, please.
Look, I think his potential is probably the root cause of this debate. The fact is he's got immense talent. We've seen it. We can see what he can do. We can see he can damage teams almost at will. And that's where the real issue is. He looked like he was hitting that potential or starting to improve, and then he sort of went away, and that's why he was out of the team a little bit, and Rashford came in, and there was that little bit of rotation with Marcus Rashford. And and that's probably where this divide comes from. His potential is right up there, but it's when and if and look, I'm not saying it's all on him. Obviously, this is a multifactorial thing with the manager, club, fans, whatever, and he's had personal problems as well. So all of that comes into play. He's a young guy, but if you're allowing certain things to really get on top of you, then and affect your performances, you're not going to allow your potential to come through. So the arrival of Alexis Sanchez, yes, that was seen as a hindrance to his path to the first team, and that's proven to be so. But if he's going to be someone who takes that as a slight on him and that's it, you're done, then mentally he needs to start looking at his attitude, or not his attitude, but he needs to look at it differently and see it as a challenge, see it as learning from a world-class player who's come in, who's scored goals over the years and racked up numbers that he will want to be racking up over the years. So I'm not saying he doesn't do that. What I'm saying is that potential is there for him to be reached, and he could be up there with when we're talking about those top, not Cristiano and Messi, but that sort of next tier down. He could be up there at that level, and I think that's where this divide comes from. A lot of fans want to see a bit more of that, want to see a bit more of that happening, and more often in the bigger games as well. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that at the moment there's that little bit of, we're not sure which way he's going to go, whether that penny will drop or whether it will be in that Ronaldo realm or that Nani realm. And I think that's a little bit of where, like I'm saying, the divide comes from. By the way, I'm not saying we should get rid of him completely. I'm just, saying that I'm not fully on board with this Martial FC type opinion.
All right, we get it, Joshi, and that's why you're not on Twitter anymore. Anyway, so Paul, talk to me about the potential, please, of Anthony Martial. Where can he be? How good can he be?
So just briefly address the point about how he's responded to Alexis's arrival. First of all, we don't really know because we have seen so little of him since Alexis's arrival, and it's not like Alexis's arrival was the one obstacle to his path to the first team. Mourinho had already turned one of our most dangerous centre forwards into a job share left winger with one of our other.
Let's just hit the top, hit the potential. We have a flow. You got to stick with a flow.
But also, it's helpful to make counterpoints at the time when they come up. So my point wasn't about the squad there. My point was about Martial's development into his potential. This was the point that I was leading to. So the flow would have been there if you'd only let it flow. The arrival at the point I was getting to was there is a very solid argument to say Martial can't hit his potential at United anymore, because the fact that Lukaku's in the squad and will clearly be our first choice centre forward for 5 years or more, and the fact that Alexis has come in and either by his insistence or the manager's will is playing at left wing, and the fact that Rashford and Martial were already job sharing, Martial's potential is unlimited. Like there is almost no doubt that if he leaves United, this will be a De Bruyne Salah all over again. It will be De Bruyne Salah Martial. I completely agree with what Adam said about Mourinho's handling of players like Robin and Hazard. It is a huge historical weakness in Mourinho's game, and that will really affect the development of Martial's potential. If I was him, I'd leave Man United. Like, I wouldn't, because, you know, oh my goodness, like, I would, what a dream that would be. But if I was Martial and grown up where he'd grown up and lived the experience he'd lived, I wouldn't stay another season, because I don't think there's any point. I think you're limiting the ceiling on your potential.
No, but listen, this idea that Mourinho doesn't know how to use these players is ridiculous. These are individuals that he's had issues with,
and caring for them are two different things.
Yeah,
I think in a football sense he knows how to play him, but in a human sense he doesn't know how to connect with
that
him.
is not that's not historically what you hear about Jose Mourinho. The team generally over the years,
Eden Hazard
backed him.
Of a man.
But Eden Hazard is overrated. Look at the state of him. I don't think that good of this year.
Only up to.
Look at him. What does he's not even their best player this year.
Joshi, Mourinho's teams only talk well about him up to into 2010. Like that's where it goes to. There are a few Madrid players who talk well of him, but not that many. The Chelsea second time round, well, Nemanja Matic might have liked him, but not too many of the rest of them did. So I think the idea that I think the criticism that Mourinho struggles with a particular type of creative, attacking, often wide player, I think that you just could travel through his career and go, yeah, this one.
Right, we're going to talk about the squad.
But you could also add in a few
there,
more, like Ronaldo, Di Maria. He's had, he had Robin
Ronaldo's
later,
already made.
Schneider. If you're talking about developing players, that's a different issue.
Ronaldo. No matter who the manager is, it could be fucking Dave. You're not stopping Ronaldo.
And also, let's put it this way: Jose knows what he's doing, right? He racks up silverware for fun. So sometimes it's not just about blindly backing the manager, but at the same time, he clearly knows what he's doing.
But he doesn't build dynasties and squads and think long term.
Who does
He wins
anymore?
silverware and then leaves.
Yeah, but who does anymore?
But does that mean we throw out potential and talent to?
I'm not saying throw it out. I'm saying don't just shoehorn it. Don't just go. Oh, Martial should be playing. Jose doesn't. Jose shouldn't be.
I've just got something I need to throw at you. So zip it a second.
Should be more of a balanced outlook.
I agree on that with Joshi. But if you have a squad filled with talented players, but ultimately you don't achieve anything, you become Arsenal. Do we put our trust in Jose Mourinho to win us things and therefore have to put our trust in the judgment that he plays Ashley Young every pissing week, even though it's absolutely mental that he does that? I think we have to. And I think that's where this conflict lies, is that you go, we have to trust the manager because otherwise we're just going to go through a manager every 8 months and that's never going to be good. Or do we keep our best players and become Arsenal? The next thing we're going to talk about, and I'm coming to Joshi first on this one, is options. Are there better options than Anthony Martial in the squad? We have a lot of players that play in that wide left area. Is there too many cooks at this party, do you think?
So, I mean, this again, this is where I am a bit sort of miffed. I'm not saying, look, my point isn't that Martial shouldn't be playing, but my point is that there should be consideration and balance for the situation, okay? Alexis Sanchez, I know Paul's not a fan. I think he's an excellent player. Yes, he's struggled initially, but the guy can turn matches. He knows how to affect games, gets assists, gets goals, generally speaking. Yes, he's struggling, he's still settling into the side, but against City in that second half, we can see what he can do. He can spot that run, he can spot the pass, and he was involved in all 3 goals, 2 direct assists, and the other one was for that cross into Herrera, which a brilliant assist by Herrera, by the way. So my point is Alexis Sanchez is this proven world-class decision maker in that final third, and we've seen it over the years. We've seen it throughout his whole career. So you bring that in, and we all hoped he would slot straight in and bring that form from the past into the team, and it hasn't quite worked out. And I think this is another thing that's accentuated these debates around Anthony Martial. The other point to make is I think Jose Mourinho has a responsibility to try and get the best out of our best players, and I do think Anthony Martial is in that sort of category of player when we're talking about it. But Lingard has been in excellent form. Yeah, okay, he hasn't scored as regularly in recent games, but his performances have been excellent. Even against City in that second half, he was buzzing all around that final third, really trying to make things happen, and he did alongside Sanchez, Pogba, And those three together really affected that game in the second half. Lingard, you can't really drop him. Mata has actually been one of our better performances in terms of knitting that front unit together. So again, you've got to start thinking about all of these things. And Lukaku has started to. He looks like he's probably been our best player since the turn of the year. In terms of his output, in terms of his performances as a whole, work rate, attitude. You can see that he's been one of the few leaders on that pitch. Okay, against Sevilla, not so much, but that was the whole team. So my point is, we've got so many options. Jose's got a responsibility, and I've not even mentioned Rashford, by the way. So you've got all of these guys vying for probably 3 spots, maybe 4, depending on what system Jose is using. And you've got to try and accommodate that. So sometimes you're going to miss out. And my point about Martial is, if these stories are coming out now, then potentially there's a not a mental issue, but there's why can't I'm someone who's like, why can't he just sit in there and see this as a challenge, work his ass off, see what the manager wants from him, and put that in place, get back into the side and affect games. That's how I would see it. You're at one of the biggest clubs in the world. And if he wants to go to PSG, then I'm all for it. Sod off to PSG, because you're going to a really poor league. Look at Neymar. He's killing it out there, but he's not actually ever going to be told you've done something significant in France. That league is not something that's going to challenge that caliber of player. So you've got to move out and you've got to do that, and you've got to try and do it. If he wants to lead to that kind of league, that's up to him. But I'm saying stay, fight for your place. You're young. You can learn off some of these guys, and you can really start to build a unit in that front area. But I will also agree, there's a massive responsibility on Jose Mourinho to make sure that happens. So I'm talking about balance as opposed to who should be on the side.
All right, we get what you're going on about.
I'm just putting it out there.
Paul, we are finishing before 5, so, take it away. Options.
Are you having a go at me for how long
No, I'm having a go at Joshi for that. I went and got lunch in the middle of that.
Sorry.
I have to say, I agreed with almost all of that. And you will rarely find a stronger advocate for balance in analysis than me. And I think it's the biggest problem with football debate in general is that there's nowhere near enough nuance. And I think here, the missing nuance isn't in the kind of Martial's good versus Martial's bad, because there's no real need for nuance there. We know he's very good, and he has some weaknesses in his game and some issues around temperament which emerge from time to time. My call for balance would be around those issues around temperament. Because I think if you look at the obstacles that there are to Martial's path to the first team have been put in front of him since his arrival. So he's almost been sold a dud here. You said I'm not a fan of Alexis. I think Alexis is a wonderful footballer. I wasn't a fan of Alexis's signing. That is a different thing, because that's about how it affects the balance of United's squad, and how strengthening the areas that you're already strong is not generally a good way to build a squad towards excellence. Now, would Martial have grabbed the second half against City by the scruff of its neck and won that, not single-handedly, but 1-2 punch with Pogba, dual-handedly won the tie in the way that Alexis did? Maybe not. So, we did see the benefit of having Alexis in the squad in that game, and he was magnificent. And you could argue that if you're just saying, okay, who's a better inside left forward, Alexis Sanchez or Anthony Martial, you could argue that it's Alexis Sanchez, and I'm not going to fight you on that. But what I would say is, why are we in the position where we're having this debate about our first team? There are numerous different configurations about how we build our attack, but the idea that you do it without prioritising Martial's inclusion is an anathema to me, because it would seem to me that he's the kind of talent that you need to keep happy, because in 5 years, if he loves Man United in 5 years' time, we're all going to be reaping the benefits of that.
Adam, options in the squad. Is it too many options, too few options, too many people playing the same position? Can all of them stay and be happy at the same time?
Well, I would hope so, but probably not. But then you look at things as well, and you think Zlatan's gone now. So we need another backup number 9. So would Sanchez, Rashford be moving there? Does that open up, another space elsewhere? But then it's like Sanchez is going to be playing every game. Lukaku is going to be playing every game. Jose Mourinho very rarely chooses to rest his number 9 unless their legs are hanging off, as we saw with Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He doesn't seem to rest. He doesn't really rotate or rest players in some of these positions. So it's hard to see. But for me, Martial's ridiculous. Obviously, we're well covered in some areas and not covered in other areas. And Paul and Joshi have pretty much covered it very, very well in terms of it's all about balance. And I don't think the balance is there. Sanchez, amazing player. But I just feel like we've taken, if you're going to take Mkhitaryan out of the team and replace him with Sanchez, surely you keep Sanchez in his position. Because at this moment, the team's all over the place. And I know Jose Mourinho says that he wants to keep his attack the way it is, but I don't know if he really means that. So there might be a few more changes on the way, and Martial could be one of them. Although I hope
Mata
not.
could be one of them. Rashford could be one of them. There's pretty much all of them, I would imagine, apart from Lukaku and Rashford.
Let's be real.
Filing line.
Rashford isn't going anywhere. Mata, on the other hand, possible with his contract situation. But even then, when Juan Mata plays, Manchester United play better.
We lack balance in the squad, don't we? We've not got enough good centre-halves and full-backs. We've got loads of forwards.
Jesse Lingard and Juan Mata are 2 players that get Manchester United ticking almost. But when you pick your best team, those 2 aren't in it. And it's quite crazy. We're in a weird position at the moment. Jose's been here 2 years. We don't know our best team. We haven't really been able to see it as well, which you've got to be fair to him. We've had a lot of injuries. And we haven't really been able to see Bailly in the team, the spine of Pogba and all. We haven't been able to see that consistently enough. Right. And we had a lot of those players on the pitch against City, and look what happened.
Right, let's move into the 32nd round. This is your chance to tell us what needs to be happening with Manchester United, and specifically Anthony Martial. I'm going to come to Mac first. Let me get my stopwatch ready. Give us your 30 seconds, where United need to be going, what we need to be doing with Anthony Martial, and all that sort of good stuff. 3, 2, 1, go.
Manchester United need to tell Anthony Martial and let him know he is important to this club. Let him know there's a contract here for him. And let him know he's going nowhere. It would be absolutely ridiculous. People talk about Mo Salah and Kevin De Bruyne when they left their clubs, when they left Chelsea when Jose was there. The thing is, Chelsea had better players at that time than those players, and it was understandable. United don't have better players than Anthony Martial, and we wouldn't be able to replace him with a better player.
Interesting. History repeating for Adam is where he's going. Paul?
Anthony Martial is a potential...
I haven't pressed go yet. Calm down.
Sorry, I thought... my bad. Anthony Martial is potentially a generational talent, and it would be a massive waste for United to have invested the kind of money they've already invested to him and then let him kind of fade away as a squad rotation option. He's clearly got the talent to be a first-choice selection at an elite team. I hope it's us.
Didn't need the full time. Joshi, can you squeeze 10 minutes worth of talking into 30 seconds?
I don't know, man. I'll try.
Go.
All right, look, Anthony Martial, I agree, great talent, but there needs to be this, what I've said earlier, this penny dropping moment, and I think he's got issues in that regard. I don't think we should sell him, but I think he needs to understand that this is a rotation game, and these guys have already admitted that Alexis is a better left winger, Lukaku is a better striker, and Mata and Lingard knit the team. So there's a lot of challenge there. He's got to rise to that challenge and, play better.
Wow. I admitted no such thing.
You admitted. that Alexis Sanchez is a better left-sided, inside forward.
I said I wouldn't fight you. That's not the same as admitting. I said,
I'll fight you, but I just like fighting. Right. It's time for my unbiased decision. And genuinely, there's few topics that I am unbiased on. I am completely on the fence with what's going on with Martial, thinking what's best for the team, what's best for the individual player. Because I like Adam and Paul. I've had my heart broken with Falcao and Welbeck and other players like that. There's just something I want to point out to you, though. What have this list of players all got in common? Valdez, Falcao, Rojo, Blind, Herrera, Shaw, Di Maria, Schneidlin, Memphis, Darmian, Schweinsteiger, Romero and Martial.
Van Gaal signed it.
Yeah, and they now basically no longer play football matches for Manchester.
Yeah, but
United
Martial's an anomaly there.
Yeah,
well, Romero's an anomaly because he's chilling.
Signed by Moyes. Mata was signed by Moyes. Does that mean we just got to fuck him off now?
I didn't say Moyes.
And I tell you what, I really wish I'd gone last because I forgot to have a go at Joshi for the penny dropping comment that he made the first time round, because that is the thing that drives me the most insane about this debate. The idea that Martial, the penny hasn't dropped.
This is Jesse's final thoughts.
Think
Zip it. This isn't you lot dive in. This is me giving my decision.
Best moment since Fergie. Martial's
disregard these comments. Strike these comments from the record.
They're not on the record. This is Steve's final thoughts, wrapping up. The problem those players have got is Jose Mourinho has got a personal thing with Louis van Gaal. And any player signed by Louis van Gaal is probably not going to have a very good future at Manchester United. Really?
He's got a problem with talented
Look
players.
at the evidence in front of your nose. Look at the evidence in front of your nose. All of those players signed. Daley Blind, no reason why he shouldn't have played when we've needed a left-back. He's played fantastic when he's been played at left back this season.
He also gave Marcus Rashford his debut.
No, I mean...
He didn't sign him. He didn't
Doesn't
sign
matter.
him, did
He gave him his debut. He's his
I
player.
know that Jose's got an issue with Van Gaal, but I mean, there
Hang
are
on.
certain players that...
Shut up!
Yeah, no.
I'm giving him a wrapping up.
But it's a bad wrapping up.
Yeah,
It's not. It's brilliant. You're just jumping in. Don't get me a chance to do it. I'll get it done before it goes dark. Right, zip it. Here's who won. Paul won. Shut up. Paul won. It was a good argument. And he's right. I think Anthony Martial is an incredible talent. He's one that we do need to see in the first team, but not at the detriment of the first team. There is nuances to this that need to be played out, and I would love to see Anthony Martial leading a line with Lukaku, with Sanchez, with all of the riches of abundance of talents that Manchester United have got in the top. But I think this debate splits our fan base as much as every other single thing that splits our fan base. So you guys need to get in the comments and give us your stuff. There's a little thing up here that you need to be doing, or up here even, that you need to be voting on. Where you sit. Joshi, shut up, or I'm going to make sure you get your other account banned off Twitter and all.
No, listen, just so I don't get abused, I was deliberately playing devil's advocate. I love Anthony Martial, and he should play every week. I've got the text messages to prove it.
Right, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Get your vote in this corner over here. Tell Joshi that you hate him for how much he hates Anthony Martial in the comments. That's going to go down an absolute treat. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back later. See you in a bit.